Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Part 2 review of Business 501. This is Unit 5. This is 21st Century Strategy. Now, if you haven't seen any of the videos in this course before, there's a playlist below. And of course, if you haven't started the course, you can find a link to the course below. Just a bit of a note here for everyone is next week's, the next two videos, the final reviews for this course, will actually not be live. They'll be pre-recorded videos, but they'll come up on our YouTube page, the same page, around the same time, probably a little earlier. So if this is a little later than you'd like or whatever, you'll probably get them a little sooner. But without any of that, if you have any questions, make sure you can put them in the chat. We'll get to them. But I'll just hand it over right now to Dr. Laura Portelis to get us going.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. And as you know, this is our last video for Unit 5, so the second part of Unit 5. And what I'd like us to do today is circle back a little bit on a couple of things that we talked about last time and get into a little bit more detail. So as you can see, I wanted us to talk a little bit more about Theory Z. If you recall, we talked about Theory X and Theory Y and Theory Z as essentially a management style. And the reason why this is important, particularly when it comes to strategy, as we talked about, is that you really need your people, you really need your employees to help support your strategy. So when we look at management style and how do we create a culture where people are going to be motivated to move forward with the strategy that you've come up with, that's why management theory ultimately is really important. So a few more things that I want us to talk about in regards to Theory Z is all of these assumptions that you see listed here. So these are the assumptions, and as you could tell, they are positive. So when a manager or a leader in an organization really has that positive outlook and believes that employees are trying to do their best, that's when you create that culture that can help support your strategy. So some of the things here are managers then for Theory Z believe that workers want a happy and intimate working relationships with not only their supervisors, but also other employees. They need to be supported. They value working environments where things like family traditions are really important. They like a sense of order. They feel a moral obligation to work hard and have this sense of cohesion within their fellow workers and fellow employees. And the final assumption is that workers can be trusted to do their jobs as long as management can be trusted to support them and look out for their well-being. So you can see if you buy into ultimately these assumptions, how that creates a very cohesive working environment that then in turn supports the strategy of the organization. So in relation to this, and I know this is probably a little bit small, but we'll send these out as we have been. If we go back and look at Theory X and Y, I thought this was a really good graphic from our readings that explains the main differences between these two different management styles. Theory X tends to focus more on authority, discipline, having tight control, and this tends to create a culture that isn't very healthy, that people have a difficult time working within. Theory Y, on the other hand, is there's less control and there's a lot more trust for the employees to do a good job. So from a cultural perspective in the organization, Theory Y or Theory Z are probably the better ways to go. Theory X just doesn't work very well when we're trying to get the most out of our employees and get that creativity and the things that we need in order to support our strategy. Any questions on this?
We'll sit here. We'll give everyone a chance for some questions. We'll be back in 1 minute. We'll just give everyone a chance to catch up. I think the stream might be a little bit slower today than we usually like, so we'll just give everyone a second here. And even if you don't have any questions, again, if you have questions, you put them in chat. Give you a chance to catch up if you're a little bit behind, and we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, well, we're back. It doesn't look like we have any questions yet, but again, you guys can put questions in the chat anytime. And of course, if you're watching us later, feel free to leave a question down in the comment. We'll get to it. But I'll hand it right back to you, Dr. Portelease, to keep going.
Thank you. So I wanted to go back and I want to take a look at one of the tools that organizations use for strategy and for innovation. And as you go through the readings, I think that this is maybe one of the most important things in this unit, simply because it really maps out how organizations might combine design thinking, innovation, along with strategy. So what I'd like to do over the next few slides, we're going to pull apart this model and talk a little bit about it. So the first thing that I want us to talk about is the idea. You can see that I've circled it there in yellow on the left-hand side, that when we're looking at disruptive innovation, and if you remember, disruptive innovation is something completely different from other products and services that have been offered before. We want to look at design thinking, which is the green kind of circle on the right-hand side there. And then we also want to consider how we brainstorm and generate ideas within our organization. So again, I know this is probably still a bit small, but we'll be sending these out. So when we look at design thinking, which is the green, we look at defining the issue that we're trying to solve. So if we're developing a new product, for example, we will most likely look at how do we define the problem that we're trying to solve in development of that new product. And then idea 8 basically means brainstorming. It's how you go through and generate new ideas. And organizations that are really successful do this very well. They always have this steady stream of new ideas that they are able to decide whether or not they want to act on for a new product or service. So after that, they'll then prototype the product or service, and then ultimately they'll test it to see how that holds up in the marketplace. So let's talk about what this has to do with strategy. When we look at implementing a growth strategy, or really any type of strategy, whether that be international markets or anything along those lines, we want to have this steady stream ultimately of new ideas within our organization, because that steady stream of ideas is what is going to help us grow. Some companies do really, really well at this, in that they always have new ideas. I think technology companies, especially those types of organizations, tend to always have something in the pipeline. And that's ultimately their strategy, is to be that innovative organization that always has something new. And that makes them, of course, very profitable. So that is that part of this model. Let's take a look at this, which is more focused on, you can see that I've circled it, more focused on sustained innovation. So this is, rather than these brand new ideas, sustained innovation is more focused on how can we make changes to our existing product or service in order to make it better. So this is the process here. And again, I know it might be a little bit small, but you can see that we will first have a vision of a new feature or something new and different related to the existing product. And then we will put together a product roadmap, in that what are the current benefits of the product? How can we change that product to make it more marketable or make it better? And then excuse me, and then related to that, we'll then develop it, plan for it, release it, develop new iterations of it, and have these small releases and these small differences. So our product is always new and fresh and different. One thing that I think is important to note here is a lot of the ideas for new product and service features come from customers. And that's why a lot of organizations spend really a lot of money on social media and focus groups and different types of things in order to get that information ultimately from their customers. So when you think about brand new products, new iterations of existing products and services, just be aware that that's generally where a lot of these ideas come from, is actually from the customers themselves. So the final part to this is something that we talked about, I think, a little bit earlier in one of the units. And this is the idea of a business model canvas. And this really wraps up everything that we've been talking about throughout these 5 units. We talk about, so this is a tool that an organization can use to really kind of narrow down what direction they want to go with their strategy. So let's talk about each of these a little bit in turn. So the first is the key partners. So if we look at the variety of strategies where we may want to partner with an organization and develop these relationships, this is where we would write it in here, the types of partnerships that could be beneficial to our organization. Then we look at the key activities. What are the things that we do as an organization that make us different from our competitors? And what are things that allow us to serve our customer? Then we want to look at our key resources. So what are the things that we have? What kind of human resources do we have? What kind of capital do we have? So all of those things within our organization that we would consider resources, we would ultimately write here. We then look at our value proposition, and this is similar, it's different, but similar to competitive advantage. So a value proposition would look at, why does a customer buy our product or service as opposed to somebody else's? So here you would write down all of the value propositions that your product or service offers. Next, you'd want to think about and really narrow down what types of customer relationships do you have, and along those same lines, the types of customer segments that you have. So who are you selling your product or service to? What are the demographics of those individuals that are probably most interested in buying your product or your service? And then we look at channels. So how are we actually going to get our product or service into the hands of customers? So this has to do with the supply chain and distribution in general. And then we want to also look at the financial aspects, and that would be the cost structure, pricing structure, that type of thing of our product and service, and how we plan to generate revenue from all of these key activities that we've listed earlier. So what this does, it's a very simple way ultimately to map out what your overall strategy is. Of course, there'll be a lot of other details that would need to be filled in, a lot of tactics developed in order to ultimately set the goals and objectives. But this can be a good way, think of it as a picture or a quick snapshot of how the direction that the organization wants to go in terms of strategy. So at this point, I'd like to know if there are any questions, and those are all of the slides that I have. We have finished Unit 5, and we'll, I think, see if there's questions, and then we can close out for today.
Yeah, everyone feel free to get your questions in. We'll just do a little housekeeping here while we wait. Again, yeah, so this is the final unit review. So good job, everyone who's gotten this far. Thanks for coming with us. Again, next week, next Monday and the Monday following, we will have, I believe, case study reviews for the final part of the course. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll have those, and those will be separated into 2 parts. So one next Monday, one the Monday after that. Again, they won't be live, but feel free, if there are questions, to put them in the comments. We can still answer questions in the comments. No questions yet. People in the chat thanking you for a good job, and I'll join them in saying thank you very much. Yeah, so we'll give everyone just a little bit of shot. I don't know if there's any final things you want to say live to people before we go to the recording, maybe. Some words of wisdom when we give people a chance to maybe catch up.
Yeah, I think I would just say congratulations for making it this far. I know that whether you're listening live or you're listening later, I know that all of you have a lot going on, work and earning this degree and probably families and a lot of other things. So I would just say good work and moving forward and learning about strategy so you can earn a certificate or whatever your end goal is. So good job, and I'd say keep up the good work.
All right. Well, thank you very much again. And again, thank you everyone for joining us. Um, a note that I didn't make, if you're having any trouble with the slides, we will once again, just like we have for the other courses, if you saw them earlier and missed it, we are putting the slides once we're done with the live streams in the description. So if you were having trouble with your internet connection or something, seeing some of the slides, we'll have those versions in there for you. But that's all I got. Again, thank you, Dr. Laura, for taking us through all this, and thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you in recorded form next week.
Bye.